If there's one man who can help, if there's one man who can help, it's the man coming in here right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of a podcast made Fullmetal. The segment here we've been doing for the last couple weeks has been the Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 fan guide, in which I've been going through episode by episode, kind of giving my general thoughts and kind of asking you to give your thoughts as well as we go through the show. You can expect these videos roughly every Friday, usually around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I might miss a week here or two if I have a series of episodes that might be a two-parter, kind of like this one today. Speaking of which, this episode is going to be two episodes we're looking at: the Alchemy exam and Night of the Chimera's Cry. This is I think, probably a fairly anticipated, or at very least rather well talked about series of episodes. The synopsis basically has the Elrics have been preparing for the Alchemy exam, and they're currently staying with Shao Tucker while they're studying for the exam. He's kind of almost like a mentor figure to them, known as the Sewing Life Alchemist, known for creating intelligent speaking chimeras. While they're there, the brothers become friends with his daughter Nina. There's also the dog Alexander. In the first episode, Hughes' wife actually gives birth to their daughter, which the Elrics help out with. This is the first time Ed actually notices that he can perform alchemy without the transmutation circle. Due to his lack of a body, Al isn't really able to participate in the exam because Mustang believes it would kind of raise suspicions about why that happened. But Ed manages to get past the written portion. After completing the whole exam, Ed is now a state alchemist. He gets his pocket watch, which amplifies his alchemy. During the time when the brothers are kind of with Tucker, they ask him about what happened to his wife regarding the experiments with the Chimera, and it's kind of implied that she left. But they're kind of suspicious about it, and Tucker's being kind of odd, a little bit shady, a little vague about his responses. This leads to the brothers sneaking into Tucker's lab because it turns out he was kind of under pressure from the Brigadier General to continue on with his research and find new advancements, or he'd basically lose his funding, lose his career. Seems like Tucker's being kind of pushed over the edge. We kind of get the impression he's sort of like that from the beginning. We see that he's kind of constructed a new Chimera that also speaks, but the Elric brothers quickly learn and are horrified, as the audience is, that it is in fact Nina and Alexander who've been combined into one. Yes, Tucker was so desperate he used his own daughter and dog to kind of fuse them together into this creature, which is now quite miserable. Edward is, of course, very upset about this because he and Al recently had become very close to Nina, and I think also kind of seeing Shao Tucker as a bit of a father figure again, and kind of having that idea sort of tarnishing their idea of him was probably also considerably upsetting. But of course, Tucker sort of kind of says that really Ed's no different, and it's kind of for the benefit of science, which naturally Edward also doesn't like because it's another sort of dark mirror at himself and his own past actions. However, the military does arrive and Tucker is arrested. Ed decides to kind of free the Chimera because he doesn't want it to be destroyed or experimented on, but it kind of goes off, and Scar, who is kind of introduced here, finds it and says that it's basically an abomination, and then kills it, and the episode sort of ends with the Elrics finding the Chimera of what was once Nina and Alexander dead, and there's that bloody image against the wall, and that's kind of the end of the episode. I mean, my overall feelings for this one, this is one that I feel like has been talked about a lot. It's interesting because even though both Fullmetal Alchemist shows have fairly in-depth plots and have a lot going on in terms of twists and turns and various character motivations, kind of a built-up mystery and lore, especially in the first series, and a lot of darker moments, a lot of kind of bottle episodes and flashback episodes with a lot of those creepier, darker themes and body horror elements. This fairly early storyline in both series, and really in Fullmetal Alchemist overall, is surprisingly impactful, and I think that really says a lot about it because it's fairly early in the show, and it's really probably the most iconic thing about Fullmetal Alchemist is this whole little storyline with Nina and Shao Tucker. And I'd say that even though he's not really the main villain in either show, he's probably the best known villain, and I think some people might say the most evil in some ways. He's the most iconic, and I've talked about that before in other videos on the channel if you want to if you want to check them out, and of course a lot of other people online have discussed it as well. I think it's just because it's such a horrifying action with a really personal angle that kind of really is the first big kick in the face that the Elric brothers really see, kind of once again demonstrating that theme of science going too far, but also that personal connection of really just kind of try and twist somebody that close to you in such an unnatural way, and kind of the fact that Tucker seemed to almost lose his humanity, but in fact was a person, is just a very disturbing idea. Once again, in 2003, we see a couple episodes before and after this one and throughout that kind of highlight this theme, but I think that's why it's such an important episode, because really it sort of encapsulates what Fullmetal Alchemist, especially the 2003 series, is really about overall in regard to a lot of those themes. So in a way, I would have to say, if I was talking about the significance of this episode, it's very important thematically. I mean, it certainly is very important overall in terms of the themes if you want to understand some of the main ideas of what Fullmetal Alchemist is about. But if you never watched any other episodes of the show, I think these two episodes kind of have really the most impact of kind of getting really overall what FMA is about. As far as for this show, I'd say thematically it's very important, but we also see that in 2003, it's really a must-see as well for plot purposes and because Shao Tucker does become a major player in the plot and a major antagonist, which is much more fleshed out, of course, than in the Brotherhood version or the manga, even though there obviously it was very impactful, which is one reason why for this anime they probably decided to explore him, because Tucker was such an interesting mad scientist character who goes through a rather interesting arc. You'd think that you couldn't really go much further with this villain, but they do, and it's very interesting where they take him. I'm interested to kind of see where it goes again and talk about it in future episodes, because it's definitely one of the most memorable and interesting aspects of the show for me, and I do like where Tucker kind of goes with this one. I'm glad they decided to go further with him, though. Even if it was just these two-parters, I think it would still be very strong. And once again, the episode is really divided more into two. I think that's another thing about FMA is it really takes its time, and in some cases it's a bit of a slow burn with that strong atmosphere. And this is an example of where the pacing really benefits it, having two episodes to kind of flesh out the story a little more. Whereas in Brotherhood, it's definitely much more succinct, but I think there are some things that are lost. As far as my favorite Fullmetal moment, that's really tough. I kind of want to cheat and just say really this whole two-parter is just kind of so great unto itself. I mean, that is kind of a cheat. But I will say probably just going down into the lab, the lighting, the shadows, really Tucker, and particularly the voice actor's portrayal of just this madness, and him kind of sort of really twisting the knife verbally into Edward, trying to kind of say, once again, the classic trope of we're not so different. You understand because you kind of try to go this far with human transmutation yourself. It's just such a haunting and frightening performance, and the setting really kind of amplifies that significantly. So I think probably just Tucker's little moment there in the lab is just definitely the standout. And you can tell me if I'm being too high on this one, but I think this one is probably a 10 for me, like a 9 or a 10 easily. It's one of the strongest episodes in the show this early on, and there are some other really good ones later, but this one is easily one of the best ones. Still stands out. It's pretty much the most legendary episode of the show, which is interesting because it doesn't have that much to do with the main plot, really in either show, because in Brotherhood it's still more of a thematic thing that's kind of a preview to bigger things that come along. But even so, with that general aspect of the storyline, it's just still so impactful. So I think that really speaks volumes. Alright everybody, well this was the review of those two episodes. I know these ones have been talked about a lot, probably more than any other episodes of 2003 or pretty much Fullmetal Alchemist in general, but if there's anything I missed that you would like to talk about, please let me know in the comments below. Love hearing from you all, and I appreciate the support thus far. Once again, it's a two-parter, so I might not upload next week unless I have the energy, but you can still regularly expect these episodes around Fridays at 9 o'clock. And in the meantime, everybody just try to have good days and stay magical.